here we go. All right, so for all of you who are not following me on your social media or who haven't gone to my website, here is where I would love to send you. I do keep up with designers and share a lot of good information, so please join me at these locations. And just a little bit of housekeeping. If any of you are going to High Point, I would love to have you reach out. I know a lot of fun things going on. I would like to share those, and oftentimes I just like to get together with designers because I will certainly be there as well, floating around for the entire week and meeting with other designers like you. So let's get together. And then one more thing, since we only have an hour here today, there is a free 17-page pitch roadmap, and why this is going to be helpful to you is because there's a pitch template deep into that roadmap, and this will really, I think, give you the confidence to see what a pitch looks like and that you're doing it correctly. But there's a lot of more good information in there. If you want to receive that, just go to recipeforpress.com. Okay. So just a little background on myself and why I feel I can speak to the subject with authority. I was a magazine editor for over 2 decades and a freelance writer as well. And I spent a lot of my time not in a cubicle, but as a freelancer, I was with people. I was in boutiques, I was in your studios, I was on site with people, and I wrote because I would be writing for maybe 6, 7, 8 different magazines at the same time, often I would really get hooked on one person, write about them in a few different ways, put them in a few different magazines, and really make a difference in the business of in a business by that exposure. But as a freelancer, of course, my next step was then to move on to the next person. And very often when I moved on, the people I had recently written about came back and said, I really, really would like that to happen again. I have no idea how to approach an editor like you. And could you help me learn? Because I don't quite have enough to hire a publicist. And most people just are not ready for a publicist at that stage. So I saw that over and over when I transitioned out of magazines. At that time, I was an editor with Lucky Magazine. I was working with Refinery, 29, House Beautiful. I decided before I moved on and did anything else, I would write a book, Recipe for Press, and I would share with the world what every editor everywhere wants to tell you when it comes to pitching a product, a profile, or a project. It's the kind of stuff that editors aren't going to tell you face-to-face, but they do talk amongst each other, work with people who get it. And so I really wanted people to just get it because I would see businesses work so hard to get my attention. But they were sending all the wrong messages. They were definitely putting the effort into it, but it was falling flat, and in fact, it wasn't proper. And so I felt like I could make it a lot more simple, save time, save people time, and give them the confidence just to pitch and to demystify the whole process. Because the fact is the editors really need you. They need you to pitch them. They cannot rely 100% on publicists to bring them the goods. So you want to be your own publicist when it comes time to pitch a project or to pitch a story, but you want to go about it correctly. So I wrote the book, hoping that the world needed the book, and as it turns out, many people did need the book, and this is an example of a woman who read the book, put the formula together, pitched, and landed a quarter-page story in Hamptons magazine, and sent me this picture. And so many people like her have done the same once they, again, just get it. What she knows now and what I know about press is that it has a domino effect. And by that, of course, I mean that the editors oftentimes find people also in the magazines. The reason you see some of the same people written about time and again, it's because they've just found a different angle, and those people are press ready, and the editor from one magazine might see it in a magazine and just might find a different angle that is a better fit for their own magazine. So what happened to the woman beforehand that I mentioned here, she landed something in the Hamptons magazine. An editor from the Today Show happened to be reading it while on vacation, picked up her story and her small product and blasted it to 6 million people on the Today Show, and that made a significant impact to her business. Now, I will be the first to tell you that press is not going to dramatically change your business, even though it feels like it should. What you want is a constant presence, a constant kind of hum of publicity. That's the healthiest way to approach press. And you want to realize, of course, that it's free if you can get it, and that really scoring press over the lifetime of your career is about creating relationships. So I'm very big on creating relationships. I'm also big on purpose. And by that, in this context, I mean that do not bother putting the time into creating a pitch, to getting everything ready if you don't know why you want press. And it did not dawn on me until I gave a talk a few years ago, and afterwards we broke into smaller group sessions, and a woman who had come and taken the day off to come to this conference, who was sitting in that small group, who was ready to put the effort in and the time into pitching, when I asked her what did she want the press to do, what was the reason she was going after publicity, what was the purpose, she just didn't have an answer. She just had not thought about that yet. She maybe thought in the round, like everybody, it would feel great. Maybe her peers were getting press and she just wanted some, which is all, valid. But a few more questions, just a little deeper dive into that. She explained to me, well, actually, she had really gotten all the work that she needed in her city, but she really wanted to begin to work in a neighboring larger city, and that she was going to open with another designer a small boutique. And once we went down that road, knowing the purpose that we were looking for clients in the next larger city, that we wanted to share that we were opening something new, it really gave us direction to the pitch. So ask yourself, why do you want press, and what do you want it to do for you? That is going to give you more direction and save you more time, and it's going to give you the stamina to stay with it. Because if you do not have purpose for pitching, it'll fall flat. You'll get bored with it. You'll wonder why nobody's returning your email, and then you'll move on to something else. When you have purpose, it really gives you the focus and the stamina you need. Okay, here's my thing, and it is the point of view at which I come from this is you think like you're the editor, meaning you open the magazine you want to be a part of, you look at the pages and you ask yourself, are the pictures that you are pitching with, and is the pitch that you're bringing to me look like it already belongs in that magazine you're pitching? When you start to think like an editor, you edit, you get a little more critical, you understand the aspirational nature of magazines and blogs, and you elevate the work that you're pitching. So how does an editor think? We'll talk a little bit more about that. But since we're specifically today talking about pitching projects, This is a graphic that really shows you how an editor would look at a house project. Very, very rarely is one magazine going to pick up the entire feature story, the entire house. Generally, they're looking for a great kitchen, they're looking for the outdoor story, and that, new categories, so they're looking for a lot of outdoor stories right now. Is there a small spaces story? Made to feel big, is that angle within that house? Do you have a great children's room with really exceptional, interesting organization, by design going on? There are just so many angles, and that's the way an editor looks at a house. You don't want to have to ask the editor to really tease out the story. You want to really think about what is going to appeal to an editor before you pitch them. So that is the mindset I want everybody to get in. And also to think, why would you try to pitch the whole house when you might be able to get 5 articles out of it? Okay. So now we're going to kind of dive into before the pitch, what you need to do, the homework involved. And let me just say now that about 75% of the work in pitching is in the homework. By the time you get to the pitch, it's 3 sentences, it's 3 bullet points, and it's some pretty pictures. But it's the homework that goes into really, really homing down the focus of that pitch so that you give the editor something that really is a good fit for that publication. So this screen that I'm sharing now is probably, it is the #1 complaint of editors everywhere about pitching, and it is that they can tell so quickly if you didn't read the publication before you pitched. So that's step 1. Really get to know a magazine before you pitch it, dissect the magazine, look at a few copies of them next to each other, and you will start to see that there's a formula to the way they lay that magazine out. And it's the same every month. And it's a formula that's working for them. So they're not going to change it because you pitch something so intense and amazing. That formula is working for them. And it has sections, so there's the front of the book section. Those are the first couple of pages of the magazine that really focus on new and news and now. Smaller stories. There's the well section right in the middle where they're running stories on interiors, on projects. So again, back to that one purpose and focusing where and why you want to pitch. If that example, if the woman wanted to pitch and get more clients in the neighboring city and really get those people to her boutique, then she needs to go and gather the publications in that region, in that city. She doesn't need to pitch Art Digest or House Beautiful. She needs to pitch people in the city and what they are reading to get them to, move. Okay, so is it a regional publication you're pitching? Is it a national publication? Is it, a national blog or a more regional blog? The same applies to blogs. They have a layout, they have a formula. You need to pitch to their formula. I always say when I speak on this subject, if I was only given one word to say, and then I had to walk on the stage and say it and walk out, I would choose this word. It is so important. We're in a very visually driven industry, but now more than ever, photography is driving all placements. So let's clarify what I mean by editorial photography as opposed to just a good picture. How many of you have a great portrait of yourself and a more editorial style portrait of yourself? And be honest, because that means it has great lighting. It is set in a scene that has a pop of color somewhere, and it is a little architectural and not, and slightly minimal. It's a vignette that you've really, really spent time scouting to put your best face forward. Now, this is a designer friend of mine who gave me permission to share this with you, as she shared this picture with me. And it is a really pretty picture of a really pretty lady. And this was what she said she was going to put on her website. And I said, it is in fact a really pretty picture, but it's not an editorial style picture. And I think it really helps to put the two side by side, because the difference is so great that you don't know it until you see it. But now you see it. And now if we look at the two side by side, you absolutely see you've got a bold, jolt of color. You've got white background is generally, or very well-lit background is generally best. She looks like she belongs in the, in House Beautiful. And the picture on the left looks like it belongs in the city newspaper. So that's the difference. Oftentimes people ask me, well, where do I find that kind of photographer? Because my friend says she was a photographer, but my pictures came back looking just so-so. And I might recommend that you look at the bylines of the photography in the best regional publications. Not only do those photographers have the ear to the editors and they share, and it's often a direct introduction to editors, they also freelance. And that's who you want, because they understand what an editorial style portrait looks like. So you definitely need to get one of yourself. And then when we start talking about interiors, it's a huge difference when an interior shot is well lit, when someone understands composition, and you can't do everything. You really need a team. And if you are going to put your money anywhere, because it will affect everything you do, from your website to pitching to sharing on social channels, put it into photography. Because websites are simple these days, but if you don't have amazing photography can make a simple website outstanding. And editors almost prefer that at this point, because we're just looking at so many things. But so-so photography, it won't get you where you want. You wouldn't be here at this Ivy seminar listening to me talk on the subject if you weren't interested in this. So really understand that pictures of interiors that are well lit, that are done by an interiors photographer, are often saving editors, because they don't have the budget either to always send a photographer. So if I'm an editor and I've already used the budget for the next few issues, and I have 1 or 2 spots left for projects, if a designer comes to me with images that have not been broadcast everywhere, that are styled well and well lit, and I can use them, and another project comes to me that's an equally amazing project, but it has not been photographed and I would need to send the photographer to invest in that, then more than likely I'm going to go with the one that's coming to me with great pictures. It also just sets the tone. It's the impression that editor will always have of your work. Same goes for the portrait. They will always have that impression of you, so make it a good first impression. And they also, it's not to say that you can't start now, because editors also start to sense and to see when people are putting energy into the right places. And what they're picking up on is that you are getting closer to being press ready. Okay. Wanted to walk through the pitch essentials. I don't think I need to spend all that much time here, but I do need to call out a few things, because you would think that these would be no-brainers. And people gasp when they hear that, oh, they forgot to put their website in the pitch, or they sent 10 high-resolution images. I would never do that, but the fact is it does happen. And again, that's an impression that you're making on the editor who you want to run your work for free. You want them to know that you are press ready and that you are professional, because they are too, and that's who they want to work with. And that's why they go back to often the same people over and over, because those people are ready for them. And these editors are moving really fast. They have online content to fill, they have pages to fill, and they have about 4 editors or 3 or 4 editors after them who they are responsible to meeting their deadlines. So it's not just the deadlines or thoughts of one person, it's people behind them, so they have to move fast. So often if it's late in the day or if it's Friday and they, gosh, they've got to fill this one spot, they're going to go again and again to the people who they know are ready for them, who will return their email really quickly, who have fresh images that they're sitting on because they remember when they photograph each project to get a new headshot in that setting while they're at it, and who they feel good about running because it's represented well on their personal websites. Okay, I think we've got that. And I just want to show you a diagram of a pitch, because what I really want you to understand here is that it's the image that is making the first impression. And you want those images when you are pitching a project. It's a little bit different than product, because if you're pitching a product, you probably want to run no more than 2 pictures. But if you're pitching a project, you want to whet the appetite. You want to give them maybe 4, no more than 5 pictures. The rest would be in a link, or you can say you would happily provide them high-res images or put a Dropbox link, but we're not putting a Dropbox link to every picture you ever took of that project. It's still to an edited selection. But the point of this diagram is to say pitches are so short these days. They're not asking you to write a story on the project. They really just want a flavor and enough information that kindles their interest. Then they will reach out to you and ask for more. And I'll give you an example of that in just a minute, but I really just wanted for this to be impactful in a way that stresses that images, how important images are. So for a project, 4 or 5 images, no more. There would be low resolution images, so you don't want to clog up somebody's inbox with huge images, huge files. But they would allow them to see very quickly that, oh, this is a good fit. Oh, I don't want to let this one get away from me. I think this is my last list, but it's worth, this one comes from Lisa Mowry, who is an editor of interiors for Trad Home, for Better Homes and Gardens. She does a lot of work for Atlanta Home Magazine, but I felt like she said best and she gave me permission to share some of these things. But there are 2 in here that I really want to stress. You just don't want to go to an editor with an incomplete pitch, meaning you pitched the idea, but then you found out later that the owners actually don't want to see their interior or their home, you know, in a magazine. But then you have to take it back, which is just poor form. Pitching homes that are complete. Editors tell me often that people come and they're just so excited because it's a great project, it's looking so good, they just feel like they need to give a little teaser, but an editor can do nothing with that. They need to see the home completed. So don't pitch until you are very sure that that home is completed, and the only thing you need to do is to style the shots, or you have already styled the shots and are sending some really beautiful images. I'm asked this a lot because I know it's a concern, because this is something to really let sink in. Pitching projects takes so much longer than pitching product or pitching a profile story. It just takes time. It can take years. It can take years, in fact. And I've heard of magazines sitting on projects for a year, at least. But what you don't want to do is overshare that project because you've gotten impatient on all of your social channels and on your website, and then have the editor who is once interested come back and say, you know, it's just, I've been seeing it everywhere, so we're going to let it go. I think any editor would tell you it's okay to use a picture or two. Just don't make it a whole room shot picture. Don't give everything away. Just, it's like wearing a dress with a slip or something. You see a little hint of the slip, but you don't see the whole story. I don't know another way to say it, but that's what I'm trying to say, is that you know, a few shots on your website, on your personal website, people and editors understand. But seeing it on other friends' blogs or seeing it all over your social media in depth is a big turnoff. We've discussed hiring photographers who are specialists in interior shots. We've discussed that brevity is, and bullet points are a really good way to share some significant features in that story that might give the editor just enough information to be interested. So the teaser images, and don't submit the same project to more than one editor at a time, especially to competing magazines, because I have seen it multiple times where a great project is pitched to two competing editors, and they both bite. And then now you're in a predicament because you have to go back and tell one, I pitched your competitor, and then you've really lost the faith and the, you know, deep-rooted relationship that you were about to create with that other editor. It does not sit well with editors. Okay, in my store, we created a media list that is, it's big, but it's not huge. It's really geared towards this industry. And so that is a very helpful and affordable tool. It's $75. I think it's about 1,100 editors that we cull through twice a year to make sure they stay updated. But the reason my team created this is to take the work out of finding those editors. In fact, you could use the list just as a tool to follow the right editors on social media, because you certainly should follow editors before you pitch them and follow the magazines before you pitch. They give a lot of information away in about themselves, about their taste, just as you do in your social media curations. But just finding those emails takes time. Knowing that they're the right editors takes time. So this list has been wildly helpful to people who are getting in the zone and getting ready to pitch. Gives you some comfort that when you're studying the mastheads of these magazines and trying to figure out, which editor is it I need to pitch, that you can reference it against something that's giving you the actual contact and the title. And I'm going to remind you of that roadmap back at recipeforpress.com that includes an example of a pitch and an example of a follow-up. And I wanted to make sure I did not forget to talk about the follow-up. The follow-up is as essential as the pitch. Okay, by that I mean every day an editor probably sees a story that they're mildly interested in. And every day, about 80% of those fall off their email page and they don't follow up on. They were interested, but they got busy, papers piled up. When you follow up, and you should only follow up once, and you should follow up with the same images that you used to pitch with. I'm going to say that again, only follow up once. Any more than that is really borderline kind of pushing and pestering for a response. But if it is a good project and they were interested when they saw it, but they just forgot, or it just fell off their email page, and you follow up when it comes to projects, I would say give them about 2.5 weeks, a little longer than normal, 2.5 to 3 weeks actually. When you follow up, and you give them that visual jog of the images, same images you pitched with, and just remind them of the pitch. And you ask them as you end that pitch, is this something that you would be interested in for your pages to come? What you are doing by doing that is you're saying you're serious about this. You're in the business of pitching, and you're going to place it somewhere. Now, you're not having to say all this. It's just what is inherent in the follow-up. When you send that follow-up, they recognize that, of course, somebody that's sitting on a really great project is going to take it elsewhere if I don't respond. And that, I'd say 50% of the time, that gets a response. Now, if you don't get a response and another couple weeks goes by and you haven't heard anything, then you're free to take it somewhere else. But you need to signal that in the follow-up that you really brought it to them to give them first look. And if it's not for them, you'd like to take it elsewhere. But you love the magazine and you'd like to, you hope that it's a good fit for their pages. That way you're giving them some idea that you may be taking it elsewhere. And like I said, that often gets a response, and often the response you want. Okay. One more thing. I'm going to go back to this diagram, and I'm going to just close with this and then open up to some questions. I'm going to read you a pitch so you will just hear. I don't want you to look at anything. I just want you to understand how short a pitch is and how it needs to be. We don't need to go on and on congratulating an editor or showering them with praises. We want to say something to the effect of good morning, not dear. Good morning, Anne. We've been preparing to pitch some unpublished projects, and one of our most favorite is seemingly a good fit for the outdoor section of your magazine. The owner's a creative family with 3 kids. She was an elementary school teacher, wanted a livable yet sophisticated home with some pops of color. I've outlined a few bullet points below of features that may be of interest. Calming lavender in the kitchen and in the living room that we lovingly refer to as the yellow room. There's a healthy mix of custom high-end and mid-grade product throughout. This project won Terrell the Northeast or Northwest Designer of the Year. So that's 3 items there that really pull out some strengths of that pitch. Thank you for your consideration. Here is a link to images of the whole house we had shot by photographer, and name the photographer's name if it is a photographer that they are used to working with, and if you know that, and a few of our favorites below. Might this be a good fit for your fall pages? Okay, so that's it. That's a pitch. It's really all in the preparation. Pitching is 80% preparation, and the rest is stamina and organization. And I promise you it works. I recently have been working with the designer's team, putting a communications person in place. And together, we prepared the pitch. But before we prepared the pitch, we really studied the magazines. We really studied them to the point where you would understand, okay, this magazine doesn't like to run the pictures of the family. They want to run the designer, and it's more designer driven, where another magazine might be more personality driven, where they want to show the pictures of the people within the home, who live in the home. So you have to go at it, with that kind of editor's eye. And twice we pitched, in a course of 2 months, we pitched 3 magazines. All of them responded because of our follow-up or because the pitch was just that good. The first two didn't take it, and the third one, she landed, the communications director of this firm landed 8 pages in a really solid magazine. So it's just persistence and organization. And this person was spending no more than 2 hours a week on pitching and on follow-up and on preparation. So I really believe that if it just becomes part of your business, but not an overwhelming part, it will grow. It will, you know, you will energize it to the point where you might need to, you know, bring someone in as communications. But for now, you can do it yourself. Just give yourself the time and prepare well. All right, I'm going to close with that and open up to some questions from you talented designers. I think I'm going to escape out of this and see if I can see, and we'll kind of organize ourselves and then have a sip of water and let's see. You just find where the questions will live, and I'll start answering some questions. I hope this information is helpful. I could speak on this all day, and there's so many facets of it. In another time, we could speak on products, we could speak on just photography, and we could continue to speak on projects, but I really wanted to focus on the projects today, and glad we had that time. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So I have a question from Christine. She asks, so if pictures are on blog or website, you shouldn't submit for a pitch. Okay, that's not exactly what I was saying. I was saying that when you have a project, you don't want to put multiple images from that project, especially whole room images, exterior images, especially the key, you know, the kitchen story, these key pictures they just don't want it to have been seen everywhere. That would make me fall out of love with giving you the space. So it's not that I'm saying you can't put any on anywhere, but if you really think you have a feature-worthy story and you are wanting to submit it to an editor, then holding off on, you know, writing about it on your blog and sharing a lot of those images is a good idea. Yes. Let me know if that answers your questions. And I've heard editors say too, they understand that the designer, would want to share an amazing picture or project because it would attract clients. But and that's okay, but just don't overshare to where you have shown the whole story on your website or on your blog, because you would then lose the interest of rerunning those same pictures in the magazine. Because if you think like an editor, you're devoting, you know, pages to some beautiful images and a beautiful story. Well, if they can go to your website and see those very same images, why would they put it in a magazine? Okay, let's see. So this one is coming from Amanda. Hi, Amanda. What about behind the scenes pictures on Instagram? Would that turn editors off to wanting to publish? No, it wouldn't. It's a great teaser so that editors who use Instagram almost as a market for, let's see, they use Instagram, again, as if it's a market. They are looking often for stories through Instagram from these behind the scenes kind of shots. But again, they should be teasers. You make a mistake to share the whole picture of an amazing room that would be a 2-spread opener by sharing that picture on your Instagram. Instead, share it like a little vignette. Talk about the story a little bit, maybe in the words, but save the key completed pictures for editorial. Okay. Let's see, this question comes from, let's see, Alice. Okay. Some publications require you submit through online forums, and it's really hard to find a way to follow up outside that forum. Any thoughts or tips on best practices? Okay, so they're being very intentional about having you pitch through these forums. I often also read the fine print, and they say if you do not, they will not consider, and generally this is going to be blogs, not magazines, but if you do not, unless it's a very small magazine. And the reason for that is that they don't want to say there are only 2 people behind that magazine. So you're sending it to info@comfyhome.com, but you're actually sending it to the editor-in-chief, which is generally not the case. But you want to try to submit in the way that they are asking or telling you to submit. I'd say yes, you should try to submit in that way. Again, following up, I would follow up in the same way. I would say that it's a follow-up to a pitch. But I know that it is really aggravating when someone asks you to pitch in a certain way and has given you some guidelines for pitching and is giving you really good consideration that you try to go around that. So I would try to stick with that as a best practice. In the future, will you share on pitching products? I would love to. I have a lot to say on pitching products. One thing I will say is that I have trained many interns who have gone on, who wanted to move to New York to be editors, and many have gone on to be editors. And a few have gone on to be major market editors. And I had a conversation once with one of them, and she said, you know, Amy, it's so sad. Sometimes the best products don't make it onto the page. It's the ones who have the most colorful labels. And she's right. And it does bother me as somebody who cares about products when you see a lot of so-so products getting a lot of press and some really great things not getting on the page. So I'd love to come back and focus on pitching product and preparing to pitch product. Yeah. Hard truths, but best that somebody tell you so you can kind of correct quickly. How do we get the 2017 media list? It's all the media list, the book, the pitch wheel, which is a cute little tool that you can hang in your studio that reminds you when to pitch, because national editors are pulling together their pages 5 to 6 months in advance, and regional editors are 2 to 3 months in advance. So we created this cute little tool. They're all in the store at recipeforpress.com. And there's a bundle, I think, in there too, where you can kind of get everything that we have. Those products have all been in response to people asking, like, I understand it, but I'm having a hard time finding editors, or I got it, but I can't remember when to pitch. So these are just simple tools, all combined under $100, that would help you kind of great for your pitching arsenal. Okay. You mentioned relationships are key. Makes absolute sense. This is coming from Matthew. I recently changed careers into the design space. I'm starting with zero connectivity in the industry. Any tips on places and spaces to begin an engagement strategy? I would say, well, for starters, you're good to be in this community. I hear it's pretty fabulous, word on the street. that is really working well for designers, which I applaud, because it's not an easy thing to build. But I would say get yourself to a design center or a market. I'm going, as I mentioned in my first couple slides, to High Point Market. There are so many educational seminars. You can get FaceTime with these people who are experts on subjects, and they're really there for you. They are there to talk. They are there to drum up new business. They are there to find new people like you. So I would say that for the investment is high return. And I would say if you can't quite get to something like High Point, go to the nearest city, your design center in the nearest city, and support them as well. The educational seminars, again, at places like America's Mart, or Chicago Design Center, D&D, they're phenomenal, and that's where your community lives and likes to support each other, and people appreciate that support. Let's see. This comes from, okay, well, anonymous. Would you say it's best to submit a project first with a local regional publication versus a national magazine? That is a great question, because national editors, it's not that often that they pick up somebody's work who has not been published on a regional level. And why is that? It's simply because we can see that unless you are not in or near a big city where you could get published regionally, it's good to see that another editor has vetted you. And some of these regional publications are just as beautiful and even stronger than national publications, some of them. And I think that the editors do want to see that you get it, that you understand the process, that you've worked with other editors before they pull you in and overwhelm you. So it's not unheard of that someone's gotten press in a national issue or national publication with no experience regionally, but it's best to start regional, because for one, that's going to affect you or impact your project more on a personal level, on a local level. Two, you get in the hang of working with editors. Three, these editors, you need to know that these circles of editors are small. They are in contact with these national editors. They're on panels together at places like High Point and these design conferences that I mentioned. They're talking a lot amongst themselves, so they do a lot of sharing as well. And so you want to, on a regional level, be well loved, among your editor peers. Okay, let's see. This is coming from Susie. I may have missed this. Should the images you submit be a Dropbox link or embedded in the mail? I'm okay that you asked it again. We did cover it, but it's okay because it's important to stress this enough. Maybe I should say, give you a real no-no story in that someone I had worked with, and the editors knew I'd been working with them to help them develop their pitching skills, just couldn't help themselves. Even though I told them, do not send a Dropbox link with hundreds of images. When I say send a Dropbox link with some images, I mean you cannot send or should not send 10 to 15 images in the body of the email. You should send no more than 4 or 5. That'd be enough. But in the Dropbox link, you might have 15, but not hundreds. Because what you're asking an editor to do, and especially hundreds of kind of the same shot, you just couldn't pick which one, you didn't edit, and you're asking an editor to edit, and that means you're not press ready. So I just want to make that clear. Yes, a link in the body of the pitch to a handful more of great images and a few teaser images embedded in the email is the appropriate response there. Okay. Any thoughts on the difference between pitching print and online publications? Well, one has instant gratification. Online, you might see a much quicker turnaround, but print, the physical feels so good. Print stays out and about a little longer, but online you can share and get a lot more traction faster, and you can ask more people to share. You can tag those who were involved and get them sharing. So there are advantages to both. In fact, I would just, what is more meaningful to you, and do you need for it to act faster, or is the slow growth and the kind of weight of the title that you want to see working in print, is it significant enough, important enough to you and to your clients that you'd rather wait on that? Let's see. All right, any more questions? These are all really good questions. Again, I think that there are probably a lot more that would be covered. I didn't mention this. I should really mention the fact that I've just written a book on this specifically for interior designers, but it is truly a subject that is so nuanced for interior designers. I think I'll end, yeah, I think I'm gonna close out the questions and wrap up on time so we can all get back to our work, but I'm gonna end with just a little pep talk, because I know something that you might not know. I know that there are so many opportunities for press. When we talk about print versus online, we should also talk about how manufacturers now, who never once really had to think about a beautiful catalog that might feature a design ambassador, or a newsletter that might focus on a designer who happens to love and place their work, they also are having to think about this communications, some people might call it a syndrome, but I like to think of it as like totally free tools to advance your work and to share and to create community. They're all kind of having the same struggle, like how do we set up this team properly? How do we get consistent newsletters going that look good? How do we collaborate with designers? They want you. You are a wanted group of people. Your buying power is tremendous, and they want to get to know you and create. There are many opportunities within the industry, not just with the straightforward shelter magazines and shelter blogs. Designers have blogs, other designers have blogs, and it's a great thing to collaborate. I've been doing a lot of intimate gatherings with designers and industry people, but we don't gather unless we photograph it properly and we create a story that everybody can share. It's good for everybody. So just know that there's so many opportunities that I wrote a book on this, on the nuances of how to really use them to your advantage to forward what you're doing and your purpose. And that's coming out in January, and you'll hear about it, but it will be Recipe for Press Designer Edition, and you can look for that mid-January. But I would say until our next time, thank you so much for having me, and always feel free to send an email through recipeforpress.com or through any of the other social channels if I didn't cover something here. All right, take good care.